Here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the informational meeting for our workforce senior data analyst. The classification name is Operations and Policy Analyst 3. Thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your day, especially on a Monday with the beautiful weather outside. Um, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We do have a packed agenda for today's session. You're going to be hearing from our amazing hiring manager, Michelle, about the vision for the position. You're going to hear the skills and experience that she's looking for this role. We're going to talk about what the day-to-day looks like. Okay. We're also going to talk about what makes this role exciting, the onboarding and training plan, any required travel or work schedule for this position. And then you'll hear from me um, the screening process before selecting applicants for an interview. And you also hear our interview timeline. Okay. So if you're all ready, let's buckle up and get this party started. Like I usually say, we'll start with introductions first. Okay. I'm not going to make everyone introduce themselves, but we'll just have Michelle, myself. Was anyone else joining from your team, Michelle?
Yeah, I wanted to have Jen Adams also introduce herself. Jen is
Perfect.
going to be a critical partner to this position. So she may also answer some of the questions for our candidates.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's go ahead and start with introductions, and then I'll start. I'll pass it off to you. We'll pass it off to Jen, and then we'll bring it back to you, Michelle, and you can just get us started, okay?
Okay.
So my name is Teresa Camacho. I'm an executive recruiter. I'm the recruiter assigned to this recruitment. My pronouns are she, her. I welcome all of you to this space. Thank you so much for being here, Michelle.
Hi, my name is Michelle Johnson, she, her pronouns, and I am a senior HR manager here with the Oregon Department of Human Services. And I'm really excited to have you all here. There's a lot of interest in this position, and I'm really hopeful seeing everybody here today. So thanks for taking the time out in this process to be here. And I encourage you to ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer those for you.
Thank you, Michelle. Jen? Is she here?
Hmm,
I don't
she
see her.
Okay,
Not yet.
that's okay.
Okay.
When she joins, I might just defer to her for a couple of questions as well. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
sounds
Okay.
great. And before you proceed, Michelle, I forgot to mention too, just like you said, we want to make the session as interactive as we can. We want to make sure that we're answering questions as we go. We will leave about 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the end for any questions that were not answered. I will keep an eye on the chat. So if you don't want to open your mic, you can put your question in
Hmm.
the chat. You can raise your hand. We actually prefer if you raise your hand. That way we can keep track of who has questions. If they're not, we don't have enough time because we only have 1 hour for today's session. I will collect the questions that were left unanswered and I'll get you some responses to all of you. Okay. I will share the recorded session with all applicants that have applied for the position already. I have your email if you have already applied. If you haven't applied and you want to get access to the recorded session, just send me your email address and I can share that with you. If you want a copy of the position description and you haven't applied, you can also send me your email address and I'll get you a copy of the position description. Okay, but I'll be the timekeeper. I'll make sure that we get all of the items in the agenda today. So, Michelle?
Excellent. All right. And just Teresa, I'll ask you, please keep me on track. If I'm not answering all of the questions in the right order, just feel free. I think that you said the first question, or what are those skill sets and experience and knowledge that we're looking for this position? So if we're good, I'll kick it off with that question and answer. Okay. Great. So, one of the primary things that we're looking for this position is the knowledge and proven experience in data analyzation and visualization tools. So, right now we're utilizing Power BI and we're using smart sheets. So we do want someone that has that experience, and we're looking for someone that has more than just the user experience. And so I think that's really important for folks to hear, that the user experience is incredibly important, but we also need you to have some of that back end experience and the ability to develop dashboards, build data models, and utilize that software to be able to help our leaders and team members within HR make decisions. Now, the other experience that could be useful in this is Tableau, Excel, DAX. Those are all other data visualization tools that could be really helpful as well. So definitely looking for those transferable skills if you don't have the direct Smartsheet or Power BI experience. The other thing in terms of essential attributes or skill sets that we're looking for is ensuring that the person is able to, in addition to meaningfully display the data in ways that leaders can make decisions off of that data, but they're able to draw insights and point out recommendations. So we're not just looking for this person to show us, visualize the data or show us a report, right? We really need that data to be able to be transformed into something that's meaningful in terms of trends, being able to identify trends but and patterns, but also being able to make recommendations. And how we see that person being able to make recommendations is likely some sort of human resources experience. We want the person to be able to say, like, hey, I know what this means in a workforce world. So this is workforce data that we're working with, and we want the successful candidate to have that workforce data experience in this position. And then alongside of that, also listed in those skills and attributes and that we're looking for is that solid understanding of HR business practice. So forecasting um, talent, forecasting vacancies paired with strong HR acumen to be able to address organizational challenges. So we want the person to be able to come in and they'll be able to learn when they step into this role, what are the organizational goals, values, mission, and then how is our workforce aligning to that? And how are we using data to tell that story? So some of the things that we're using the smart sheets and Power BI for right now are our own internal HR processes. So I think that that's really important for folks to know. So we're looking at workflow. We're going to want the person in this position to look at the data and say, hey, I noticed that this process is taking a long time at the front end, not just, and here's a red flag on that, but being able to dig into why is it taking a long time and make recommendations for how we can improve that process or how we can even change the way the data is being entered and displayed or collected to be able to make improvements on our process. So definitely looking for someone with that continuous improvement mindset. Um, we utilize Workday as our human resource information system here at the state of Oregon. And so we want someone in this position to be able to also collaborate with our other workforce data analysts on our teams, like Jen Adams that I mentioned earlier, and be able to partner with those teams to say, hey, are smart sheets the best solution for how we organize and collect and display this data? Or is there another solution? And can we use Workday? Workday is our HRIS. So the more often that we're able to use that for reporting, data visualization, we want to do that. So we want someone to be able to say, what's the best solution? Just because we're using Smartsheets, Power BI, and Workday doesn't mean that that's the only way that we can display or visually display the data. But the more often that we can use Workday, we want to do that. And there might be other opportunities to introduce new tools or new ways to be efficient within these processes.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
And I do see that Jen joined us. So should
Oh,
we
great.
pause here and ask her to introduce herself?
That's great. Thank you.
Oh, I can't see myself. Can you see me?
We can see you.
Hmm.
Okay, sorry about that. I had everything set 5 minutes after the hour, so I apologize for being late. I am Jen Adams. I am with Human Resources, and I'm sure that they mentioned I work with a lot of data. So I am just excited how many people joined
Right.
in and are interested in learning about this position.
Thank you, Jen.
Yes.
All right. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right, Michelle, I'm gonna go back a little bit.
Mhm.
And the other piece of this agenda was talking about the vision for this
Yeah.
position. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The vision for this position is that this position is able to provide the necessary data and information for our teams within HR to make operational improvement, strategic decisions around how we do our work within HR. So they're very externally facing within HR. Some of the data that happens within our organization is externally facing. So Jen Adams, who you just heard from, she puts together a variety of data and visualization of data to help tell the story of our workforce at the agency level. This position is very much focused internally within HR. And how are we tracking the work? What kind of work is getting done? How are we measuring that work? And how are we improving that work? So the vision for this position is to be able to collect that data, analyze that data, and visualize the data in a way that we can make decisions internal within HR on how to improve how we're doing the work, to develop implementation strategies, to collaborate with different teams, to communicate those findings, and be able to do continuous improvement within HR.
Very well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't forget, if you have questions, it is okay to raise your hand or place your questions in the chat, okay? All right. What does the day-to-day looks like for this, Michelle, for
Sure.
this position?
Sure. I I've been in this position, just so folks know, for about 5 months now. So I'm learning what the day to day looks like for this position. But what I can tell you right now, and I may have Jen kind of share a little bit more too, is that the day to day should look like gathering and analyzing data, putting together information for leaders to make decisions on that data, coming up with opportunities for how to tell the story of the work that we do. And just to give folks a little bit more context about DHS and our workforce, we have approximately 12,000 employees. And we also have vacant positions, and we have all kinds of things that are happening. And there's a lot of movement in an organization that size. And so we do need to be able to tell the story, and that story changes regularly. And so we need to be able to tell that story on any given day on how well our HR team is supporting this massive workforce. And the only way we accomplish our agency mission at ODHS is through our workforce. And so that's the connection between the work we're doing in HR and the work that is happening on the front lines within DHS every day, is that our HR team is supporting that workforce out there. So if we have vacant positions, if we have positions that are involved in maybe performance processes or classification or compensation or medical protected leave, even health and safety, right? We need to be able to tell the story of what work we're doing in HR to support the workforce. And so this position really needs to be able to help our leaders communicate that story, develop how we're measuring the work of our teams within HR, and then how we tell that story of how we're continuing to always improve and be agile with the changing complexities of our agency. And I'll turn it over a little bit to Jen to talk about the day to day. In that way, if you have anything to add, Jen.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I mean, you really did capture it very well. A couple of things that I would add is that, you know, as data analyst, we spend a lot of time in the data. And one of the things that we are really working towards within HR, and we're a little bit early on our journey, is connecting our data
Mhm.
folks within HR so that we really have more of that team sharing, hey, when you see this in the data, what do you see? And
Mhm.
really trying to support each other, share our skills and resources. None of us are going to know everything about every type of tool out there. And so really being able to partner and collaborate. So I would just, the thing that I would add is it is a lot of data stuff, but we are also don't feel like you're in the sea of data all by yourself. There is also a lot of building this
Mhm.
collaboration. I already partnered with this
Mhm.
position quite a bit, but we are working to expand that so that we're mightier with our data analysis abilities and skills. And then the other, Michelle, you touched on is how large our agency is. And that is another thing that, we are looking for those trends. We are looking for those, oh, maybe you should see this. And that can also be different depending on the
Mhm.
program, depending on. And so being able to have, and our agency is massive. You're not gonna, if you are not familiar with it today, you are not gonna be familiar with it and know all the ins and outs tomorrow. But that is also another thing that we can all work together to help understand that agency and really think of it from that customer perspective. How are they going to be thinking about it? If we are trying to help them, how do we know where they are? So there's just a lot of really cool opportunities though, and especially again with our agency being so big. But
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. That's super helpful. And I
yeah.
see a question in the chat from David to everyone that says, do you have a dashboard that shows a complete picture? You mentioned multiple stories that change. How do you keep up with the changes? It's a great question. How do we keep up? We certainly do not have one dashboard of all of the changes. We would have to have a multitude, but we keep up by making sure that we have close collaboration and partnership with the other leaders within our organization. So when there are changes that are happening, that's one way that we know is that we've been partnering with leaders and we are proactive in knowing what changes are coming. The other way that we know is that we utilize our human resource information system and we utilize Workday to pull reports and analyze that data and see where there are changing. So there are a multitude of personnel actions that happen on any given day to be able to pull those reports. And I see the additional follow-up question. Do you have a central repository for data? Absolutely. Our human resource information system. Workday is our central repository for data, workforce related data. With regard to processes and how we're moving people through the process, Workday isn't the solution for all of that yet. So we utilize smart sheets. Right now, we're utilizing smart sheets for some of how we're managing where things are at in the process. So the information within our smart sheets should be the same information as Workday, but our smart sheets get to a different level of process related information. Um, Anything to add to that, Jen?
Um, Yes, Workday is the central depository. Having said that, there are also times where it is beneficial. Like I would really like to be like I work on a lot of turnover data. Recruitment works on a lot of data after it's been
Mm-hmm.
turnover. And wouldn't it be great if we could start aligning that and we could start showing, hey, Michelle, looks like we just had an increase in retirements. Your team should be ready for those for recruitments. And so that is something again that as we're bringing all of our data folks together, that we really want to be able to not only is it in Workday, but that we all understand how some of these pieces of data can connect with each other. And that may be that we have more of a in-house type of data warehouse. And so that's something
Mm-hmm.
that we are exploring right now.
Thank
And
you both. Oh,
yeah.
Michelle, there was a
Oh,
question um, that says, how many data analysts are there currently in the HR team?
but right now we have, let's see, one, two. I want to say that there are three right now, Jen. Would you count just you and Austin? Because I kind of throw Brandy into that mix as well.
I think that you are
And then
correct
this
in,
position.
yeah, you're correct that there are three of us that are primary. So I would be
Mm-hmm.
saying like this position, myself and Austin, where that is pretty much our primary role. Having said that, we
Mm-hmm.
also do have a multitude of
Multitude.
employees who are doing it as additional duties. So we do
Yep.
have some very strong data analysts that like
Mm-hmm.
they do a lot of different things. So, and
That's
I
a great
think
point.
that would take us up to about 10 people that are dabbling
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
actively full-time involved.
That's true. We have OPA 1s, 2s, and we also have OPA 3s, and then we have other senior HR business partners who are looking and playing with the data on a pretty regular basis. So what Jen talked about earlier was what we want to do going into this having this vacancy, we have this opportunity to kind of regroup and say we want these roles to be talking together more often and meeting together more often. And so being really intentional about how we're collaborating within HR and being able to draw insights from one another and talk about the different data requests that are out there. We're doing a lot of that planning right now in preparation for this person to join our team.
Thank you both. We do have about three more questions in the chat, but I'm gonna go ahead and have Daniel ask his question, and then we'll come back to the chat, okay?
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's my first time this setup, so just testing it out. But yeah, appreciate you guys taking some questions today. So personally for me, like I come from a large organization in HR and data, VA. So like for me, like having a mission-driven organization is huge for me. And you can kind of get lost a little bit in what the mission is when you're only staring at data all day. So I'm just wondering how you guys stay connected to your, overall purpose and mission that you guys clearly are very proud of and passionate about. I just want to know how you guys kind of work through that.
That's a wonderful question. That should be front and center to our work. The Again, the folks who do the work that accomplish our agency mission on the front lines every day, we have to have those positions filled within our agency to be able to do that work. And we need to have it filled with talented folks that are performing at their best, right? And so HR is we are continually talking about those things and trying to find ways that we can tell the story of how we support the workforce. So right now, we're really getting back into our metrics and we're building metrics for all of our teams. And that just by nature of building those metrics and then drawing that line of sight from the work you're doing at your desk every day to the work that is happening on the front lines is part of how we're getting back to that. So we call that our fundamentals map process and our quarterly business reviews or performance reviews that are out there. And we're doing that on a fairly regular basis, but I do also think that there's an opportunity for all of us in each of our positions to get back to the why of why we do this work, why we chose public service, why we chose ODHS as that place that we want to work. And so we want to have team members who are also contributing that and getting that back in front and center for us. This is more than a number. This is more than an employee ID, right? This is someone who is sitting there in their desk doing this work every single day, helping Oregonians across our state. So absolutely. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Michelle, I would add to that you mentioned our fundamentals map. And so our agency, the fundamentals map is part of the ODHS management system.
Mhm.
So our whole agency is really involved with and in learning. Some folks are learning a little bit, on a slower track than others, but really, really embracing being a data-informed agency. So with that, our customers are getting more interested in the data. And so I will share that, like, my name is known out there. I get people reach out to me from all over the program, every level of the program. So that's also how I keep in tune. I have also visited a lot of these program manager meetings and district manager meetings at different times. And so, and that also provides that opportunity to really, touch base with and really understand what it's like for those folks that we are serving and keeping in touch with the mission.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right. First question here in the chat, it says, in terms of analysis tools, to what extent is Python and Python libraries utilized?
I'm gonna phone a friend on this one. I don't know what Python or Python libraries are, and so I'm definitely gonna rely on somebody else to answer this question.
So It's so funny because my background actually is in recruitment, and the joke used to be, if you don't know what it is, you don't have the skill.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
Jen.
have the
I
skill.
don't either. I know Python exists. So having said that, it is not something that we are like actively utilizing within HR. That does not mean that there are opportunities to bring it in because I know enough to know that there's a lot of really
Hmm.
cool abilities with Python, but it isn't something that we are actually implementing within HR right now.
Good question.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question is, we're actually, Brett, did that answer your question? Was there anything you wanted to add? Okay, if it didn't, please message me. Next question was great information about the position. Would like to ask about how building data pipelines is done
Sure.
as in tool.
Yeah, right now I would say, and I'll lean on Jen a little bit on this too, but primarily how we're using data pipelines is for um, continuous improvement. So we're looking at it from how can get, we have real-time analytics that we're using right now within our smart sheets and within Power BI. We have that real-time analytics. So we use streaming pipelines from in terms of some of the key aspects of pipelines. And we also are utilizing it for automating processes. So many of our pipelines, if you will, are automated and send out automated messages when you move through certain processes within our smart sheets. And then I would say that we probably are using data pipelines for data transformation, maybe in terms of cleaning the data or preparing for its intended use. Those are the primary ways that I can think that we're using data pipelines. And am I missing anything, Jen?
No, I think it really does go back to that. Right now, Workday is our
Mm-hmm.
primary data warehouse, data pipeline, and that is, I think what you might be referring to is more of that future
Mm-hmm.
state of where we're going, which is also, I would add, a really good opportunity to come in on the ground floor and help us
Yes.
build this stuff. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Good segue to what's most exciting about the position.
Very good. All right, two more questions, and then I'm gonna hold because we do want to move forward in our agenda, and then we'll come back to the questions in the chat. Okay. Here's one more. How do you balance a strategic request with ad hoc request?
Oh my goodness. Every day is balancing the request of ad hoc with the strategic and the proactive versus the reactive, right? We get lots of requests in, and I think in this role, we probably see a more proactive approach to the work versus in Jen's role, I would say she gets a lot more of the ad hoc requests, and the legislative requests and the urgent must answer this urgent kind of question request. And so Jen partners with this role to kind of be able to determine what's the best source of data? How are we going to get the best information to be able to answer this question? And I think the balancing is a day-to-day something that we all have to do in all of our jobs to make sure that we're not necessarily being led by the tyranny of the urgent every single day. And so um, one of the things that we want to do, and we're talking about the future and what's exciting about this role, is really having that data strategy around the work and the collaboration within HR to be able to say, here's the things that we want to accomplish this year with regard to data and metrics. And right now, we're internally focused and we're working on our metrics for each of our teams and telling the story of our work. And maybe 2026 looks different, and I'm sure it will, and then developing a plan for that work. So I hope that answers the question. It really is. Some days are just a little more wild than other days.
Thank you. Okay, last question, and then we'll move to what makes this role exciting.
Mhm.
What challenges is the team currently facing in terms of data quality and reporting accuracy?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. One of the big challenges that I've seen since joining this role is how do we tell the story in a way that resonates with our customer? And so, because we're talking about measuring the work of our own internal HR teams, if we come up with analytics, metrics, dashboards that share a different story that doesn't resonate with our customer, they that's frustrating for them in a multitude of ways. And so we need to be able to not just share the story of our work from our lens, but the story of our work from the customer's lens. And so this role needs to be able to dive into that and understand that. So if we're talking about how long a process takes, we don't just measure the time we started working on it to the time we're done working on it, but the time that the customer submitted the request to the time they have the answer, right? I mean, like and what are all the steps in between? What are the opportunities there? And I think that's an opportunity for us to improve in some of our ways in which we are currently measuring and demonstrating or visualizing our data within HR. Jen, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, all of what you said. And then there is also just the Workday is a nationwide system. State
Mhm.
of Oregon is not the only user of this system. And so there are some things that it may show up one way in Workday, but that doesn't necessarily meet the policy definition. Or so I would say that there's some of that. When you're thinking of data quality and reporting accuracy, just understanding some of those nuances. It isn't that the data is wrong. You just have to know how to interpret the data
Mhm.
in order to accurately reflect it.
Good point.
Very good. Thank you. All right, back to the agenda, Michelle. What makes this role exciting?
Oh my goodness. I think this role is exciting because it's a time when we are getting strategic around our data. We're getting strategic at the same time that we're looking at the foundation of how we do our work. And we're telling that story about how our employees are supporting our workforce. And we're exploring other opportunities. And I see that there's even a question in the chat about, is the organization open to piloting new data tools or techniques that improve the visualization of data or our storytelling? And yes, we are open to that, and that's exciting. So I appreciate that question. We're open to that. We've been using Smartsheets and Power BI and Workday, and also other systems on the back end because Jen uses other systems as well. And so but we are open to other systems to how to do the work in a more efficient way and how to tell that story in a better way, in a way that resonates with our customer, right? That is a lot of what drives our work, right? HR follows the business. And so we need to make sure that we're aligned with that.
Michelle, there's another question. It's related to, doesn't the customer drive the request? And
Yeah.
and so I would add to, we are definitely wanting to be aware of what the customer is requesting. However, there are times when the customer doesn't know what they're requesting.
Mhm.
And so that's when,
Mhm.
I will sometimes get a request and it's like a menu. I would like this and I would like this and I would like this. And I'm like, but what you gonna use it for? Actually, this other thing may be more helpful and informative. So yes, the
Yeah.
customer is driving a lot of our requests, but it's also our job to advise them on what's going to be the most helpful.
Mhm. Definitely.
All right. Well, you answered that part of the question. There was another question of from David, how much of the day-to-day is maintenance versus innovation in this role?
Mhm. I don't know how to really break that into a percentage, but what I observed over the last 5 months or so is that it's probably about 60-40, 60 maintenance, 40 innovation. And that innovation may be spawned from a lot of requests that I've had as someone new to this role and saying, how can we do this differently? Is there a different way to display that? Or I'd really like to see this, right? And so it's hard for me to know what that will look like in a more stable area, but I'm looking forward to this person joining our team and being able to collaborate on building more stability and routine and getting to a space of more proactive. I know that the person that was in this role before was phenomenal. They were really phenomenal and very good at what they did and partnered very well with the teams of people that they support. And so this is a great opportunity to be able to carry that forward, that great work that is already in place, and maintain that, but also a good time to explore our processes and say, hey, we've got a new person joining. Is this the way that we want to continue doing this? Is there a better way to do that? And we are open to that as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Couple more questions and then we'll come back to the agenda. How does ODHS currently use data to identify and address disparities across workforce demographics? And are there any specific challenges you're looking for this role to help solve in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate that question. We do use data to identify and address workforce disparities and gaps. We are continually looking at our data or slicing the data in ways that is centering the different demographics of our workforce to ensure that we're getting equitable outcomes and that we're serving our employees in the most equitable ways possible. And the only way that we can do that is to make sure that we're looking at the data through a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, yes, we're doing that. And the challenges that we're looking for in this role, let's see. And are there any specific challenges you're looking for in this role to help solve in that area? Well, we would want this role to be able to have that mindset and that lens. So we need that person that joins this agency to have the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging lens so that we're looking at the data on a regular basis. We don't pull reports and not look at it through that lens. We are always looking at it through that lens. We have great partners within our Oregon Health Authority with regard to what's called Real D. And if you want to look that up and you want to do a little digging on that, but there are some requirements around data in our systems that require that we are collecting different demographics information, and our own agency prioritizes this. So it is definitely something that's important to us. And in terms of challenges with being able to look at or splice the data in that way, well, it's just a lot of data. It's just a lot of data. So being able to tell the story in that way, I don't know that there's any technical challenges. Maybe being able to frame up the data so that leadership can make decisions, because we don't want to just say, here's your data, right? I mean, we really need to be able to frame it up in a way so that it's actionable data, because DEI is centered in what we do, but the action that comes from it is is really critical. What we're doing with the data is important. Jen, do you have
Yeah,
anything to add?
absolutely. So we are absolutely watching that, monitoring that, looking for disparities. I send out quarterly to program leaders. Here were your hires by demographics. Here are your turnovers by demographics. And with the turnovers, that we're also there's this balance. I would say this is the challenge. This is the balance of we want to be able to inform folks. We want folks to be aware of, but we also need to make sure that we are protecting confidential information. And so, if they're asking for data in a unit, I'd like to know the demographics in a unit of only 10 people. That is not something we're doing. So we're finding the balance of
Mhm.
what level is going to be helpful for them and inform them, and also still protect that employee confidentiality. And we also produce a workforce demographic tool that is posted out on our SharePoint site. So it is transparent.
Mhm.
Districts can go in, others can go in, and they can look and see. And then that can also help inform recruitment on, boy, we seem to be, it seems like we might be needing a little bit more representation from a certain population, and they can do some extra outreach doing that. And so since we've been posting that workforce demographic tool, it's been out there for several years. We are also monitoring our overall workforce demographic, and it just keeps the diversity keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. So it really is. It's a great question, and there are a lot of really great ways that we can use that data to help support our customers and those that they serve.
Thank you both. I'm looking at the clock. We have about 19 minutes left. So let's do this. Let's come back to the agenda, finish up a couple more items here, and then I'll keep monitoring the chat and I'll make sure we don't miss questions, okay? So, Michelle, onboarding and training plan. Please tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Oh, I'm excited to share this information with you. Prior to our last person leaving this position. And if you want to know why did the person leave, because that's always a good question that people like to ask, is they promoted onto another role within the state of Oregon. So we're really excited about that, and that promotional opportunity that they had. Prior to them leaving, though, we sat down and this person and I built the onboarding plan together. And so we have a 6 to 8 week onboarding plan of all of the different items that we want this person to learn, and ways in which to bring this person up to speed in a meaningful and good pace in the work, in a way that kind of makes sense. Where do we want the person to start? What work do we want them to focus in on first? And what makes sense that we can do? How can we sequence the work that maybe is a little less um, relevant or important in this moment to a later time? And then we develop the specific training. We know what kind of access they're going to need, and we've built that together. We're also going to rely on the person that was in this position before. Their current supervisor is allowing this person to come back and do a little bit of onboarding, joint onboarding with me. Additionally, we have another person in this team that is a human resource assistant that supports this role every day, and she's incredible. And so she's a great right hand to this position. And so we're really, really excited about this person being able to be a part of that onboarding process as well. So we plan on wrapping support around this using the outlined onboarding plan that we made in collaboration with the person that was in this role before, and then working through that. And just the first 90 days is really getting up to speed with the position. What are all of those things that they need to learn? And being that continual learner, diving into the organization if they need to learn more about the organization, learning about the goals of HR, about ODHS, and the different program areas. So just a lot of learning in that 90 days, but we have a great onboarding plan sketched out and training plan.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's talk about the work schedule and also a little
Yeah,
bit about the hybrid, remote, and office
yeah.
position, because I know that's a hot topic too.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The work schedule itself is it's a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 schedule. Now, is there flexibility with that? Yes, there's some flexibility with that. If you like to start your day at 9, sounds great. If you like to start your day at 7, sounds great. Right. Right. It's just talking through what makes sense for the person who is in this position. In terms of in the office or hybrid, this is a hybrid position. It is not fully remote. I do expect this person to be into the office for our HR staffs that at this time are now happening twice a year. And then I will want this person to be able to come into the office to work on specific projects from time to time. So maybe we have a continuous improvement effort, and we're wanting to build a process of what something is going to look like, how we're going to change up the process, how we're going to measure it, how we're going to do that maybe in smart sheets, how we're going to visualize that in Power BI. And some of those sessions are going to need to be in person. And so I want this person, whoever the successful candidate is, to know that yes, a chunk of the work can be done remotely, but some of it does have to happen in the office, and it does need to happen in Salem.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
All right, you did it. You
All
covered all of your
right.
topics.
Okay.
I have a couple more that I'm gonna cover, but let's answer some questions in the chat. I know we stopped here where I see that you deal with large data sets. May I know the largest data set that you have used?
Jen, I have no idea. Do you know, Jen?
One more time.
Okay. How big is the largest data set that
Oh,
we've worked
that one.
on?
Okay. I was reading through and that question. I saw the question and I admittedly was like, that's a really good question. It really just depends. I have not been in the data weeds of the databases that are managed by this position. So I'm not quite sure what is in there, but I was just working with some reports that were like about 300,000 rows because I'm looking at such a long period of time, a large period of time, and then some of those are like 100+ columns across, and am I working with every single one of those fields? Then it's trying to weed through that and say, I really just need these 5 out of these 150. So there's it depends on what folks' definition of large is. Also, maybe some of you that's really small. For a lot of us, that's a lot to weed through. So I think it's a relative term.
Good answer.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. Next question was, do you have an ad hoc process form when there are multiple requests?
We do have a request for data, and we can and some of the some of our requests, most of our requests for ongoing reports come in through that process. However, some of the ad hoc requests don't come in through that process, and so I just want to make sure that I'm very genuine with folks. I see a couple of you on there smiling, being familiar with the process and knowing that some of those reports come in by someone coming by my desk or someone else's desk or an email or a Teams call or a phone call and saying, hey, I've got a request for this data and I'm going to need it by the end of the day, or I'm going to need it within a couple hours, or something along those lines, or I need it next week. But some of the requests do come in differently. And when we get those, what we do is what I've done with the person that was in this role previously is let's talk about what's on your plate. Let's talk about what other requests are out there. How quickly do you think, how much time is it going to take to do this request? Because as Jen mentioned earlier, they don't always know necessarily what they're asking for or the level of effort that's required to get to that answer. And so a large part of what we do is making sure that folks understand that this is a really easy request or this is a very cumbersome request, and how much time is it going to take, and is it a request that can easily be repeated, right? We don't want to set up a process that's like maybe got a lot of manual elements to it and that we're going to have to sustain long term. And so what are other things that we can do to be able to get people the information that they need? And that's a lot of conversation. I think it was Jesse that, no, someone, whoever asked that question. It's a lot of conversation. Oh, it was David. David, it's a lot of conversation with folks to really find out what's really needed, what are they, what's the outcome that they're looking for, and then we can work backwards in terms of how can we get them the information that they need.
Michelle, you said something that just was near and dear to my heart of like, can we do this again? What is the what is the bandwidth? And I will share as well that most of our customers are very understanding with that,
Mhm.
right? If we say like,
Absolutely.
yes, I can do that, but it's going to be cartwheels and backflips, and it's not something I'm going to be able to do for you again. But what are you really going for here? There might be some alternative pieces of data that we can give to you that would be more sustainable, because I will tell
Mhm.
you, oftentimes once Sally says, hey, HR gave me this really cool thing, Joe's gonna want it and Susie's gonna want it, and it's going to spread. So you always have to think about that as well. Can I repeat this on that type of a level? So I generally, and oftentimes I get those requests and I'm like, yep, these other folks are going to want it. I'm going to go ahead and
Mhm.
build it and I'm going to send it to everybody so that I don't even have to wait for the word to get out. Somebody requested this. I think it will be helpful for you. But yeah, we're always trying to balance those types of things as well.
Mhm.
Thank you both. I'm going to pause again on the questions. I'm going to cover the last items in the agenda and then we'll come back, okay, to the questions. I know we have 10 minutes left. And so, again, if we're not able to answer all of your questions in today's session, I will capture those. I'll grab them from the chat and I will need your email. So please send me your email address if we don't answer your question. And I will make sure we get responses, okay? All
Mhm.
right, so let's talk a little bit about the recruitment, the tips that we want to provide you as a candidate, especially if you have never worked for the state or have not applied for state jobs. So we screen applications. We manually review applications to determine does this applicant demonstrates that they have the minimum qualifications. Minimum qualifications are listed in the job announcement. So whenever you are gonna tailor, whenever you're gonna draft your application material, please have the job announcement by you. Okay. Also, you might want to have the position description by you because you want to highlight relevant information. How are you qualified for this position? So read the minimum qualifications, make sure that you're demonstrating that you have those skills. Okay, because that's going to be our first screening. I'm going to manually read all of your information, cover letter, resume, and work the application to determine does this applicant meets minimum qualifications. Okay, so all applicants that meet minimum qualifications will be moved forward. Then we're going to do our second screening. Our second screening is to determine does the applicant shows that they have the essential attributes listed in the job announcement. Okay, that's our second screening. So again, I have to go back to your cover letter, resume, workday application, and score your material to determine if, let's say, essential attributes was communication, was one of them. Did Daniel, I'm going to pick on you, Daniel. Sorry, because you're right there. Did Daniel demonstrated that he has communication skills, the communication skills that we are looking for? Okay. And you can talk about that in your cover letter. You can show that in your resume or your workday application, and we'll start scoring your application material. And so whoever demonstrates that they have the minimum qualifications and most or all of the essential attributes are going to be the applicant selected for an interview. Okay, I will tell you that this will be a very competitive pool of applicants, very large as well. Okay, so I know we have already over 100 applicants, and so it's going to be important that you go back and highlight your work experience that matches this position. Okay, so the more that you learn about this position, what the position entails, like you today, you came in and hear from Michelle about what the day-to-day looks like, the better that you're going to be when you're drafting your application material. Now, let's say that after today, you want to go back and make some changes to the application material that you already submitted. You can withdraw your application and submit again, as long as you do it before the deadline. Okay. Um, and the deadline is May 8th. So it's coming very soon in the next couple of days, May 8th at 11:59 p.m. It's the deadline. If you just want to update your resume or your cover letter, you can make those changes and email your attachment to me and I can upload them for you. Okay? Any questions there? The last part that I wanted to cover with you was the interview timeline. Okay? We are planning to have 2 rounds of interviews, possibly 3, depending on how everything goes. The first interview is going to be Recruiter. Okay, and I'm going to put some dates in the chat. Recruiter interviews are going to be May 14th through May 19th. And if you're not familiar with Recruiter is a interview platform where the manager goes and places 2 to 3 questions and gives you 3 to 5 days for you to log in into that link that they'll give you and you record yourself answering these questions. Okay. You usually get 2 to 4 attempts to record your responses, and you do that within your own, flexibility as long as you do it within the timeline. Okay. It is a little awkward because you're recording yourself, just you and the camera, but you do have more time to put together your responses. Okay. So we will let applicants know if they've been selected for a recruiter interview, probably a couple days before May 14th. Okay. You will know if you've been selected. Um, After recruiter, we are going to look into doing the first round of interviews with the panel. Okay. They will be virtual, and those interviews are going to be on June 2nd. Okay, June 2nd, they will be via Zoom. We'll send you the link if you're invited. So we're going to try to keep you informed at every step. We'll let you know if you've been selected or if you have not. Um, and if we still, after the first round of panel 1 interviews, if we still have a large pool of applicants, we might do a second round of interviews. Okay, and those will possibly happen sometime around June 15th. Okay. I know I gave you a lot of information. We have 4 minutes left. I want to go back to a couple of the questions in the chat. I'm going to put my email in the chat as well in case if you have any questions or like to request a copy of the position description. I am welcoming applicants as they're submitting their application, and I'm sending you the copy of the position description. But if you want to see it ahead of time, just email me. All right, Michelle, are you ready for more questions?
I'm ready for more. This is fun.
Okay, very good. All right, we stopped here. How often is this person teaching, training, presenting to their team and others?
Yeah, absolutely. At this time, I think that this position is teaching and working and partnering and collaborating. They're I don't think they're formally teaching folks like doing trainings or whatnot. It doesn't mean there's not opportunity for that. I think this was from Dr. Pedersen. So Dr. Pedersen, there is definitely opportunity for more formalized training, and our HR team would definitely benefit from that. And that's something that we've been talking about within HR, but they are constantly coaching and educating people about data and metrics in probably most interactions.
Thank you, Michelle. Next question is, sorry, I gotta scroll up. Has your team been able to complete the first round pay equity study?
Yes, we have. We have completed all the statewide equal pay analysis process and appeals for phase 1 and 2.
Perfect, thank you. How does the team ensure that different analysts are aligned in their approach to data interpretation and storytelling? And the second part, what do you want me to read? Hold.
What's that?
There's a second part to this question.
I'll answer the first part. How do we align on the data visualization and storytelling? We're collaborating, we're communicating, we're coming together and saying what's the best source of data to answer this question, and here's the story, and we're looking at that. Not only is our team of data analysts looking at that, but also our HR leadership team is looking at that after we get those reports in, to be able to say, did are we missing something here? Are we displaying this in the right way? Are we answering the question? Are we getting at the root of what the requester or customer was asking for in this? So that's through a lot of collaboration and partnership. And Jen, I'll let you add more on that because I know that's something that you are doing all day, every day.
Yes, thanks, Michelle. This is one of the love this question because it is one of the things that the ODHS management system really helps us with too. There are, consistent charts that all programs, not just HR, that all programs utilize to be able to understand their performance. And so we use red, yellow, green, and we have
Mhm.
targets and thresholds. And so with that, that really does help us make sure that we are all reporting a lot of our information in that consistent manner. And we aren't having to go through this explanation with those that we deliver it to. Everybody knows red, yellow, green, this is what it means. And then the other is, again, all of us internally starting to work more collaboratively together, bringing ourselves together, because there are still some not issues, but there are some things where I've talked to programs and it's like, well, if I get it from this unit in HR, I get it looks like this. And if I get it over here, it looks like that. And then I have to do a whole bunch of backflips and cartwheels to figure out how to tie it together. And so that's one of the things that we'll all be working on together as well, is how are we going to best serve our customers? So there's room to work on that.
Thank you both. We are running out of time, so I'm gonna be stopping the recording here soon. I want to thank all of you for joining today and allowing us to share all of this information with you. Like I said, I'm going to try to go back to the questions that were left unanswered. If you have already applied, I probably have your email address. But if you have not applied and you have a question, I just placed my email address in the chat. Please reach out and we will get all of those questions answered. Michelle, Jen, any other thoughts?
Uh, Just a big thank you to everybody who took time to come to the informational session and learn more about this position. I hope that it's a good fit for you, and I hope to see your name on the application or candidate list. Looking forward to filling the position with a great new team member. So thanks for being here today.
Same for me. I just really appreciate the turnout and the great questions. They're very thoughtful. And for those that didn't ask any questions, I get that too. Sometimes we data analysts are a little bit of an introvert and we're going to let other people ask those questions. But you obviously were interested and appreciate your joining.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Take
Thank
care.
you.